Hi, today I'm going to be showing you a tutorial with Scratch on how to make an advanced version of Gravity for a bouncing ball. Now, it's just going to be using a bouncing ball just for fun purposes, just something new and something a bit different. So what we're going to have to start with is, we'll click on the stage, go onto the background, and we need a blue platform and a darker background. So we'll hit the rectangle tool, make a different colored platform to the background, and then just hit fill with a black background, mainly because black's easy to see a white sprite against. So we'll do the same with the white sprite. We'll go into the edit, just get the circle tool, click the white color, and then just make a circle sprite. Now, because we're just making Gravity only for this one sprite here, and we're not changing any stages, we're just going to be doing scripts in this sprite one. Now, what I've got here is when clicked, the flag button here, it'll go to these coordinates. So we click that, it'll do that. And as you can see, the ball bounced a little bit before it dropped completely down. Now, we're going to start off over here just with the jumping script. So when W is pressed, it just creates this script here where it bounces. So it only works if I'm touching the color blue so that I can't just keep on jumping into the air. And when I jump, it sets the bounce to 0. And the bounce is just extra variables that we use, which can be applied by using other motion effects. So change X by motion, or set Y to Y position plus velocity. So they're just extra effects that can be used. So we've got it to set velocity to 6 when W is pressed. And what this does here is it sets the Y position to the Y plus velocity. So that's what increases the velocity to make it bounce into the air. And we just added a little sound just for the fun of it. So what we've got here is we've got an else bit on the end of this so that if W key is not pressed after bounce, then it'll just stop the script. So if I hold it down, it should bounce more than once. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the actual Gravity script. But before I explain that, I'll just go into the left and right motions, which is just this bit right here. So what this is if I press the A button, it'll set the motion to -3. So if we look over here, A button makes it move -3x per second. And the same happens with the D, except it goes in +3. Now, as you can see, it tends to slide on after I've pressed the button. So what I've got here is that if the A or D key are not pressed at the same time, or if the A and D key are pressed at the exact same time, the motion will depreciate by timesing it by 0.9. So that's what makes it pretty much decrease in speed. Now, the only way this is possible is by adding change X by motion. So if we didn't have this variable here, we wouldn't be able to make it slide along. That's very important when using this gravity and motion, mainly for the purpose of the ball rolling, because that's what balls do. Now we're going to be moving on to a Gravity script. Oh, we can't really move that one out. The Gravity script is just this part here. So if we put that back together, we'll just leave this part out so that this can be viewed easily. We've got it so that when the green flag button is pressed, it sets the gravity to -0.5, obviously because gravity is at a negative point at all times. And we've set the velocity so that it's 0 because we don't want the ball flying up in the air. We've set the bounce to 0. Now, what this means is that if it is touching the color blue, this is what creates the bounce effect. So pretty much what this is once it touches the color blue, changes the bounce by 1, and once it equals that 1, this sets in motion. So what this is doing is it's timesing the velocity by -1, making it decrease, so that's what makes the bounce happen. And then it divides the velocity by 3, so that the bounces get smaller after time. And this just changes the bounce by 1 so that it does affect the actual. Well, this does take place because it only happens if the bounce is 1 or greater. So If it just stops and it's constantly touching the blue, this is when the else kicks in and it sets velocity to 0 so that the ball isn't just constantly vibrating across the top of the blue surface. Now, what this last bit is the gravity's effect on velocity. Now, because when we press W, it changes velocity by 6, if the ball isn't touching the blue color, which is what the else means, if it's touching blue and else it's touching blue, so it's not touching blue anymore, it's the velocity plus gravity, so that's what velocity is going to equal. And that means we're going to set y to y position plus velocity. So gravity is going to have a constant negative effect on velocity, and this is only possible because velocity is having an effect on the y position after this script has been made. Now, the point of having used such an advanced script is just how technical Scratch can be when used in a schooling environment. This is a huge problem-solving and milestone for children to work through, and it can be quite difficult. This script itself took me a very long time to figure out. I think it took me about 4 or 5 hours, so it's not easy and it can be quite challenging for children. Thank you for watching.